What is going on, guys? Welcome to another episode of Second Guessing with Stressing. Well, it's a dual episode. I'm joined by Johnny Dell, a 49ers fan and a film guru. He knows football. So, Johnny, welcome. How you doing, man?
Oh, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on, and big shout out to our mutual friend Cody, who got us connected last year, I believe it was. So big shout out to Cody. I love Cody. He's a good friend. I've known him for 10 years. So I just feel bad for him. He's a Texans fan. I'm just kidding.
Hey, no, we'll take the any empathy and sympathy right now. As I like to say, are you blessing or stressing? Happy or sad? We're stressing, or you could even say we're depressing right now. So, um, obviously this is also on your channel, so I don't want to hog this like it's my show. I think it's our show. I, for the first time last week, had an interview with Brian Nimhauser from the Seahawks, and that went really well. So I've kind of learned that like this is good for both sides.
Mhm.
Especially with you, you're kind of like me, but you seem to know the game more than me, and I feel like I know it pretty decently. But so I'm excited to talk to you about X's and O's as well. But from our respective fan bases sides, though, who else would you rather hear from a fan who is in the weeds more than anybody? I mean, I feel like this is kind of where things are going nowadays. Like national media, rightfully so, they can only spend so much time on each team, so we get frustrated when they talk about our team and don't even know the personnel or say things wrong. So as far as your 49ers fans looking forward to hear from the Texans, I should be a good resource. And then on the flip side, you should be a good resource for us. So just starting off, you just want to talk about the current state of the Niners. We kind of talked about how the perception of the two teams is like the opposite of what we expected. So I guess just year to date, what is the overall vibe and how the season's been for the Niners?
Well, so from a 49ers fan perspective, I think most of us couldn't be happier with how the season has gone record wise. I think if anything, 49ers fans tend to be one that they're never quite satisfied. When you're 5-2, it still is like, well, the offense should still be a little bit better, or the offense should be, well, okay, you're still 5-2, you're 4-1 in close games, and you've been able to close out games that last year you weren't able to. And you've lost some incredible players in Brock Purdy, still dealing with this lingering toe issue. He is a fantastic quarterback. Mac Jones has done good in his stead, but he is not Brock Purdy. And you have Nick Bosa, one of the most explosive and dynamic defensive players in the league, is gone with a torn ACL, his third in his life. He had one. It's the same ACL he tore when he was in high school. And so he had that. And then he obviously tore one then in 2020 at MetLife, which we're going back to MetLife. And I'm scared to death of that
Sorry to hear
because,
that.
yeah, well, last time we were at MetLife, Nick Bosa tore his ACL. 2 plays later, Solomon Thomas tore his ACL. Not even joking. It was 2 ACLs in 3 plays at MetLife.
Checks
But
out.
yeah, and then against the Buccaneers in the first quarter, Fred Warner, one of the most dynamic defensive players in the league, gets rolled up on in a dislocated and broken ankle. And so many of us on the team, plus the other just giant cavalcade of injuries. The 49ers are the number one most injured team in the NFL right now. They've got their injury report is something like 16 guys right now. When you pair IR with those on the injury report. And they've been this way since the start of training camp. Literally, the start of training camp, we had 3 starters go down within the first 3 days and for multiple weeks. And it's just been this team has not gone more than 2 days of doing football activities without somebody being injured in some way or fashion. Even the beginning of this week, starting left cornerback Deommodore Lenoir showed up on the injury report Wednesday, with a thigh and did not practice. Like had not even been on the injury report in the conference call on Monday. Wednesday is it did not practice. Nobody has any idea about this. Bryce Huff, defensive end, who's been playing very well in place of Nick Bosa, or well, not in place, but he was supposed to be the bookend with Nick Bosa. He ended up none of us caught it because it happened literally on the last play of the game for the defense against the Falcons, pulled his hamstring, and conference call Monday morning. Bryce Huff's out a couple weeks with a hamstring, and you're going, what in the world? So it's just it's like you have this massive cavalcade of injuries, but you're still 5-2, and you say this defense still held the Falcons to 10 points, and you're still getting it done. So I think for 49ers fans, we say, in spite of everything we've gone through, with all the youth that was infused in this team the last 2 years, being 5-2, we're ecstatic about that. And so I think it's very bizarre because our expectations were more to be a 3-3 team right now. I think many people were looking at us and saying, okay, maybe strength of schedule helps you out, but realistically, we're 3-3, 4-3 around this, or 4-2 around this time. But you're ending up 5-2, and you're looking up at positively out there, where 49ers fans are talking about what big trades can you make to make a run, like at the end of this. And the front office is kind of like, well, let's see how things get closer to the trade deadline.
Yeah, and it's crazy too, because obviously you know better than me, but from my perspective as like an NFL fan, it feels like y'all dealt with a lot of the same last year. Obviously, bigger names with Bosa and Purdy, but I feel like y'all were heavily injured last year, and that kind of was why the reason the season kind of went that way. And so my initial instinct, and I've been on prime time, so I've been able to, obviously I watched Red Zone and watched games, but I've watched like two of y'all's complete games live. But like a super super impressive win against the Rams on Thursday night. And then obviously the Sunday night game against the Falcons. But my initial instinct, you going through all the injuries, impactful injuries at that, is like coaching. The coaching's elite. I mean, Kyle Shanahan, I know he gets a lot of praise, and then maybe lately kind of getting, crapped on for his scheme, but like he, just because other disciples go and run the scheme different, they are not him. It's still the person, his ability to adapt and adjust. And it seems like Robert Salah too, is doing an excellent job. Like y'all sorely missed him. Like, all the injuries on defense, and he's still overcoming. So, and I experienced that as a Texans fan going into the Seahawks game, the importance of coaching and scheming and game planning. We talked about it prior, but I couldn't help but feel like Mike McDonald just out schemed the hell out of us on offense. So, I guess a question around the injuries. Y'all had them last year, have a lot this year. The Texans have kind of been like that as well. Obviously not to that level, but do y'all start to think like, is that something like a reoccurring issue? Is it like a strength staff thing? Is it bad luck? And then, so that's one question. And one other question / point to that is the close games. So same thing for the Texans. They've played close games their whole time with D'Amico. They tended to be on the other side of it last year. This side, they're 0-4. So injuries, is that a reoccurring issue? And then close games, what's the difference there?
Injuries is absolutely a recurring issue. This is a point of severe contention with 49ers fans. So Kyle Shanahan's team, he's been there since 2017, right? This is his 9th season. They have been a top 10 most injured team in the league in 8 out of those 9 seasons. I actually ran some numbers on it. I didn't do it myself. I put it into AI because it takes mathematic formulas I'm not good enough at. AI told me, I just basically asked it, what's the likelihood that among 32 teams, that one team, if it's by pure chance alone, ends up being top third, or top 10 most injured in the league in 8 out of 9 seasons? It told me it was less than 1/2 of 1/10%. That it was by luck alone. So you can absolutely count out this is not luck, because that's the thing. Well, you just get really unlucky injuries, and I say no, luck is spread even, which you would expect to be randomly spread about the league. And then 49ers fans believe that they've rehauled their strength and health department multiple times, and they haven't. That's a product of some of the reporting, because what the 49ers did is they were one of the most injured teams in 2017 and 18. They fired the 2 holdovers that were there. It was a guy named Ray Wright, another guy, Jeff Ferguson. They were head of strength and conditioning and head of player health. And they hired a guy, Ben Peterson, from the NHL Flyers to be the head of player health. And then they promoted an assistant strength and conditioning coach, Dustin Perry, to be the head of their strength and conditioning department. Dustin Perry was the head of their strength and conditioning department until 2024, when he was promoted to VP of player health. Ben Peterson was there from 2019 until 2023, when he was promoted to VP of player health. Then he left in 2024 to be VP of player health for the Atlanta Hawks. When he left, that's when they promoted Dustin Perry from head of strength and conditioning to VP of player health. So they haven't actually restructured their player health department in the last 5 years. They've just had internal promotions and shuffling, because Ben Peterson went from head of player health to VP of player health. But how it gets announced is 49ers restructure their player health department. That's the reporting that gets put out there. Or 49ers announce changes to the health department staff. And what all it was just internal promotions and title changes. So they've been an incredibly injured team every single year, and I think it has to wholeheartedly come back to the strength and conditioning department, and because they were the number one most injured team in the NFL last year. They're the number one most injured team this year. The only outlier was 2023. They were a top 5 healthy team, but then had 3 horrible injuries in the Super Bowl against the Chiefs and lose in overtime. They lost 3 starters in that game. And one of which then was Dre Greenlaw, who's now with the Denver Broncos. He was a big reason why Travis Kelce had almost no production the first half. He tears his Achilles running out onto the field at halftime, and Travis Kelce has like 100 yards in the second half. And so it's been a major point of contention with 49ers fans. You go, if we could stay healthy, this would be a lot better. But the biggest change this year is that you have a defense that can close, because they went back to the kind of defensive philosophy that we've seen with that Robert Saleh had, and then DeMeco Ryans after him when he came there, which was, I'm going to create favorable matchups for my front 7 and their ability to stop the run and rush the passer, even if that means I'm gonna ask more of my secondary. And that means I'm not gonna give them as favorable leverages. I'm not gonna give them as favorable matchups, but I'm willing to live with that if I can stress an opponent's offensive line. When Steve Wilks and Nick Sorensen after him came in with the 49ers, they flipped that. And they said, okay, we're willing to live with tougher matchups up front if we can get more favorable matchups on the back end. Both of those guys are secondary guys, by the way. Okay, so you have Steve Wilks as a defensive backs history, Nick Sorensen, obviously a former safety and defensive backs history. So they took that approach, and what you saw was the team was able to cover for 3.5, 4 seconds, but they couldn't win up front in pass rushes. They couldn't stop the run because their defensive line was being asked to be all world heroes. You're asking Nick Bosa to beat a double team the whole time. And so what I love about what DeMeco Ryans, and when I put their tape on, is you see that same mentality. This is going to be 2 defenses that come with the same core principles, and they both want to fly fast. They want their players to play fast up in the front 7. They ask their front 7 to play fast. They ask their safeties to play fast. They want everybody running downhill. They want to lock the offense into a box and say, you have to beat us when we're coming at you at 100 miles an hour. It's that all grass, no brakes. Like, they want guys moving one direction fast.
That's awesome. So there are similarities, and like basically what you're saying to me is y'all had an aggressive approach on defense, went to a conservative one, and back now to an aggressive one where it's a little bit more risk reward. Where and I see the same thing on the Texans. It does help, or you / do need good cover corners to be able to do that, and so that's part of why DeMeco's been able to do it with Kamari Lassiter and Derek Stingley Jr. And if you ask them to cover and man so many times, yes, they will get beat here and there, but it's worth it. And so my initial instinct as a Texans fan, hearing that you're saying Saleh would rather put pressure on the pass protection and and have a chance of getting burnt deep, that scares me, because the Seahawks defense was elite in pass rush and run defense, but the passing part of their secondary was the weakness. And I thought we would exploit that, but we could never even get to it. So like, if that part of the defense can overwhelm that part of the offense, the part you're worried about may not even get exploited. So I don't know how you feel about that. Have you kind of dove into any film as far as the matchup with Nick Caley and how you project this scheme will be and how it'll work against us?
Well, so what's fascinating about the defense, yes, they're all gas, no brakes, and they are very attacking, but they still are about limiting explosives.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're going to beat them, what they say is you have to work the short and intermediate area. And specifically what we're gonna allow you is we're gonna give you the flats, and that's where we're gonna allow some space, and then you're gonna have to beat, and it was really based around Fred Warner, right? You're gonna have to beat us over the middle in space, as far as making someone miss. So you see a lot of and Robert Saleh has really gone to this the last number of years, and it started really there right before DeMeco Ryans came over. They both play a lot of quarters, and they both play a lot of quarter half.
Mm-hmm.
And then they also both play a lot of it's a Fangio version of quarters, which is called cover 4 tricks. So what they're going to do is on the weak side, they're going to man up. So you're going to have Stingley, or and they'll do this with either corner, but they like to have the weak side two receiver side in man. So you have the number 1 and number 2 are manned up on there. You quarters the other side, and you have different matching rules for different ways that they account for the different formations of three wide receivers sets, whether it's bunch, close, far. Like, they have different ways they account for everything. But you have your weak side safety. It's called cross key. So that's why it's called tricks. It's the X is for cross keying. So it's cross keying to the trips receiver side. And so they do that so you can essentially keep 5 eyes to the 3, and then you have 1-on-1 on the backside. And that allows your trick safety to play very aggressively, run weak side. So you can slant and you can play strong side runs really aggressively because you don't have to worry about them slipping out the back door, because your safety is going to be able to play aggressive. So it allows your front 7 to play very aggressive against a run. They're also not being asked to fly way out to the flat. So they're able to attack their run fits and then drop and gain depth. And so it really, like, it seems like it's going to be a risk reward where you're going to give up these big plays, but both of them play these defenses very similarly. The way that Saleh does it and D'Amico Ryans does it. They both really, that's the basis of a lot of their coverages right now, in the way in their fronts. So if you're going to beat the 49ers, what you really want to do is you say, okay, if I have a Nico Collins, which I don't know if he's going to be playing this week, what's the status on him?
Concussion, hasn't been a practice. I would say he's out. So you're going to see more Jaden Higgins and Jalen Noel, which was what we need. It's funny, as Texans fans, you draft these rookies over linemen and don't play them, but now you're going to be forced into playing them. So
now, I will say I am a huge Jaden Higgins fan. I did a show on my own channel in the offseason before the draft. I did an entire show on Jaden Higgins and his tape because I was such a big fan of his, was so impressed with him. I was sending it to Cody. I was like, dude, I hope we get Jaden Higgins. And when y'all drafted him, I was so irritated. I was like, dadgummit.
Well, it's okay. We don't use him, so don't worry about it.
but he's a kid that has so much talent. I mean, my goodness. So if it's me, there's a chance Renardo Green, our starting left corner, is not starting. If Darrell Luter who's our backup behind him, is playing, he can sometimes get lost. He's not great in out of phase. And that's where Jaden Higgins and his size can really play as an advantage. What I would do is I would say, okay, we're gonna work the right side runs hard. We're gonna run hard to the run or hard to the right. We're gonna set it up so that the wide side of the field is to the left, and we're gonna put that as the weak side, and we're gonna go after Darrell Luter. We're going to try and hit him on some comebacks. We're going to hit these digs, and we're going to change strength right before the snap so that it forces, because when you have those split field coverages, the entire defense has to be on the same page of which side is the man and which side's the zone. And so if you change strength right before the snap, there can be issues with that. And the 49ers had a lot of issues with that against the Buccaneers. We had 5 or 6 busts in coverage against the Bucs because just they didn't account for and didn't communicate, because it was also after Fred Warner went out, of change of strength motion right before the snap. And so that's one way. Like, if I was Kaylee, I would say that's going to be a core of our passing game. And if we can bust them out
from 2x2 and motion the slot from Higgins' side to the 3x1, and now Higgins is backside 1-on-1.
Yeah, or 3x2 and then motion a running back, because you can use that running back.
No, we don't do that. We drafted Woody Marks, who had 82 catches a single season at Mississippi State, the best receiving back in the draft, and we don't motion him out. He just stays in the backfield and run between the tackles.
Well, I mean, you don't even have to motion him out. You just change him from the left side to the right side. So he just goes to the other side of the quarterback, and that changes the strength right there. So you just do that in shotgun, and boom, that's going to have to cause the defense to flip their coverage. So I like because that's the simple things the Bucs did. That was why it was so frustrating. Of like, these were simple.
So is that on the quarterback more often than not, or is that relayed? Like, obviously, you probably game plan that and scout it all week, but ultimately the quarterback is the one who has to make that determination last second to flip the strength by flipping the running back, or is that?
No, that's going to be part of the play call. So you'd have something like trips left, Z right, where you're going to then go trips to the left side and then motion your Z. And if you have your running back and something over there, as the Z comes across the formation, he's going to change the strength. And so you can do that. So if you can just bake it into the play, and that's one of those things that during the first 15 plays, you're probably going to see those kind of motions on third downs, because Nick Caley's going to try and look for, okay, are they doing these change of strength adjustments, and how well are they adjusting out of it? So they're going to look at that in between series. So that's going to be something that if I was the Texans, I would challenge the 49ers on and say, this is what we're going to do. And you live with if you have to eat a couple sacks early to just to harvest that information. If you harvest that information and you can attack that, then that should help you going forward. When I watch the Texans offense, the biggest thing I see is it's almost a little too reliant upon believing that a team is going to do what you think it's going to do every single time. And what I mean on that is it's like they aren't providing either. And I don't know, and maybe you can kind of illuminate this a little bit for me. It's like I remember there was the sack that everybody thought it was a safety on CJ Stroud, but look, it wasn't a safety. The contact was made before the end zone, and so it's a forward progress.
Thank you.
It doesn't matter if he's moving backwards.
I agree.
It wasn't like
still a terrible sack.
Right, and yes, he's moving himself backwards, but the moment he's touched by a defender, forward progress is stopped. It doesn't matter if he's turned and run the other way. But like on that play, they kept both the tight end and the running back in to block. And so you're not giving any hot answers. Okay, so if you're going to do that, you better believe that you're going to get man coverage on the backside, on the back end. And they didn't. They got a matching zone. And so they didn't have an answer for that. They didn't have ways to stretch the zones. And so it was like, you're really only giving him an answer against one look here. Now, I don't know if that's on CJ Stroud, if that's him coming to line and saying, okay, we're going to make the adjustment. If this isn't the look that we want, we're going to hot to this running back actually being a hot out, or what. I don't know what is in the structure. It just feels like there's a disconnect there, and that is the plan. It is not something that is cohesive from play caller to quarterback to execution. Yep. And it just feels a little broken there. And I'm going, okay, because I look at the play and I said, well, he didn't have a good answer in the first 2 seconds. Like once the play started going, at that point, his protection was going to have to hold up really, really well.
Or the reads were wrong because, his first read on that play, I believe, was like a dig to Nico, and he maybe could have threw it in there, but it seemed like they were jumping it. And then after that, he just kind of freaked out.
Yeah, well, and by the time he moved on to the right, I think he had 2 out routes, and they were sitting in a 3-over-2 zone over there, and it was like, you like it's a moment where if he was able to diagnose at the right time and maybe look a guy off, he could hit that, but you're asking a lot of him in that moment, and you say, okay, well then your protection really has to hold up, or because like Shanahan, what his system has been is one that relies much more on we're gonna keep 5 eligibles out in protection, and unless we are going like play action pass, or we keep George Kittle, who we believe is going to hold up really well in pass pro there, but we're still going to work 3 to a concept side and then 1 on a backside where we know we're going to have man coverage. And for us, historically, that had been Juwan Jennings, that had been Brandon Ayuk, those guys who were really good at beating man coverage on those sides. But where I'm seeing this now is like, okay, we've kind of backed away from that, and we say because what you don't like is 3rd and 9, you're throwing a 4-yard pass. Like that's what people get frustrated by. You're throwing a 4-yard pass, or your quarterback's getting frustrated because he feels like the only option he has is to throw a 4-yard pass. And so it's kind of like this, well, if we can block everything up and then we can make a 12-yard pass on 3rd and 9, that's better. But it's not a plus change. There are drawbacks on that, because then when you face somebody like Mike McDonald, who's going to be able to present something to you, and then you don't guess right, it's going to put you in a really rough position.
18-yard sack. And you're down on the 1, and now you punt the ball. They get the ball on the 40, and they have a short field and score. So, like, the big thing for us on the Texans is I thought they can be a historically great defense. I know it sounds kind of hyperbolous right now, but I mean, the offense they have not been playing complementary football. They've done it twice against 2 bad teams. And in those games, you saw how good the defense was. A shutout in 10 points, which really could have been 3 points. It was a gifted touchdown. So, but in that Seahawks game, they scored 27 points. And you can really go back to field position and things the offense did, whether it was sacks, turnovers. etc., where almost at least half of those points were put on the offense. Like, not only is the offense not helping you by scoring points, they're hurting the defense by putting you in bad situations. And then also, too, the defense is taking the ball away, giving you chances, and you don't capitalize. It gets the total opposite of complementary football on our end. But, so I am concerned. Like, it sounds, they'll probably watch that Mike McDonald tape, and it's just like the NFL copycat league. I mean, they have a great reference. You literally just saw them, confuse us, CJ, the quarterback, and the OC on what to do. You would assume that Robert Saleh, a good DC, would kind of do some of those same things. So are you expecting a similar type of performance from y'all's defense against our pass protection?
What I'm fascinated for in this game is the question and answer sessions. So coaches, as they're starting their opening scripts, it's almost like a question and answer. You ask a question, and you're looking at what they do on the field as your answer. So if I'm Robert Saleh, I'm going to say, okay, what is your answer? How are you answering it when I present 6 rushing threats on the line? I want to see what's your answer going to be. Are you going to keep a tight end in the block? Are you going to keep a running back in the block? How are you going to account for these? If I put Tatum Bethune to the left of the center, are you sliding the center that way, or do you want to account for him with a running back? How are you accounting for that? And then I'm going to say, okay, if you're keeping these 2 guys in the block, and they're going to chip on my defensive ends, or they're going to hold on my defensive ends, now I know which stunts I'm going to try and bring. So it's a question and answer session. And so it's going to be, he's going to pose that question, and he's going to say, are you trying to give your quarterback quick answers, or are you trying to give him really, really strong answers? Because you can't always do both. Are you going to give him a 15-yard route answer, or are you going to give him a 3-yard route answer and then try and have a player break a tackle in space? And so that's going to be the Kaylee Saleh kind of cat and mouse game, question and answer sessions. They're going to go back and forth on. If I'm the 49ers, I'm looking at this and I'm seeing kind of the issues that the offensive line and the protection has had, because there's been moments where you've had numbers in the pass protection and guys don't hold up. And I'm going to say, okay, this is when I'm going to start looking at, I'm going to get real aggressive with Tatum Bethune in some rushes with D Winters, and using their athleticism to loop around. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to show, CJ Stroud like man keys, and I'm going to drop in zone, and I'm going to figure out where does he like to look. Okay, if it's going to be down 3 yards outside the hash on this one, on to the left, if he sees that pressure to the right, then I'm going to drop a guy right there. That's what he'll often do, is present that, and then he's going to peel off and try and pick that up. We did that against the Falcons, lined up Tatum Bethune over the A gap, and then right at the snap, he bailed out to the left, and it's the same defense or same defensive call y'all have too. We've run it since 2017. You bring a double blitz off the sides, and he went and picked up Kyle Pitts on the slant, and you could see Penix. He snaps it. He looks to his hot over the middle because he's expecting you to be there, but you go and you cover where the hot's going to be, and then so Penix holds the ball. Pressure gets home, and he basically almost grounds it, but it was an incomplete pass. That's going to be the question and answer. And if I'm the 49ers, I'm feeling pretty confident. But what I'm going to focus on with my defense is, you still have to be aware that CJ Stroud, if you give him a lane in those moments, can go get yards, and he can go make an off schedule play. And so if we're going to do this, you better be very disciplined in staying in your lanes. And so, because make no mistake, the Texans offense, y'all have the keys to some really explosive players. It feels like right now they just have not been able to put it together to unlock their potential.
It's been crazy. So, I mean, it's a new system, new scheme. It's Nick Caley, and you're wondering whether it's going to be Rams or Patriots. And it tends to be more Patriots. And I wanted that because, we felt like CJ Stroud was handcuffed based off what we saw, not having control of the offense, ID in the mic, having audibles and hot routes, etc. It felt like early on they kind of didn't fully give him the keys, and now they're starting to. So as a fan, you wonder, okay, how much of these struggles are him still adapting to this? First time doing it in the NFL and having exotic defenses. So that's definitely part of it. But, it'll be a big test for him going here. But I think this matchup is very intriguing because DeMeco Ryans comes from San Francisco. He has a bunch of praise for all of these coaches. I know someone said Coach K, Coach Karuchek, He was actually, I played football at Stephen F. Austin. He was the defensive line coach there before
Oh,
he went to
really?
the NFL. I just remember that from the chat. So, but it's interesting in the sense that both teams are very familiar. So you have obviously D'Amico and Saleh run the same defenses. So y'all's offense kind of has an idea of what we want to do. And our offense has an idea of what y'all's defense want to do. And then we obviously know what y'all's offense wants to do because we had Slowick and D'Amico was there. I guess the small advantage in that whole lens of knowing and not knowing would be our offense being, different for you guys. And I feel like I looked in kind of roughly through y'all's schedule, and the teams y'all played offensively seem to be mostly wide zone teams. So this may be a new matchup for y'all as far as unfamiliarity with, inside zone and gap scheme duo concepts and the run. So I want to get your thoughts on that. And then two, I guess kind of to counter off of that, I've noticed that you guys Sunday night, y'all made an adjustment. Y'all adapted and adjusted, which is the big thing for me offensively. Kyle Shanahan seemingly went to more inside concepts between the tackles. Like he ran some duo and some inside zone against the Falcons, and it worked. And you know what? I couldn't help but notice too, the Seahawks, Clint Kubiak, Shanahan scheme, they also came out early on running some duo and some inside zone concepts. So twofold question on that. I don't know if you got the questions, if you want to just kind of take it from there.
Yeah. So, okay, remind me of the first question.
The first one was the familiarity, and then I feel like y'all's opponents have been more wide zone, and so is there a
Yes.
little bit
Okay.
of an advantage for the Texans with that?
Honestly, I feel like the better advantage for the Texans in this is going to be not as much duo, but can you run some power man and some traps? Micah Williams has been up and down with his reading on pull blocks and stuff. If a guy pulls and is going to kick him out like a counter type run, and sometimes he uses the wrong shoulder and you can bounce outside. That's one place. But our run defense has actually been really phenomenal this year. That has been a big focus. And I will say if the plan is to come in and run duo a lot, which is very much a Sean McVay thing in the last few years when they got Kyron Williams. So I guess I'll try and make it as succinct as possible. Last year, when we were struggling so bad, I remember the moment I was starting to really sour on Nick Sorensen, our defensive coordinator, was after our Rams game. I think it was week 3 or 4 against the Rams, because the Rams came out and they were running a lot of duo, and that's who they are. That's who they were with Kyron Williams, had been. And watching how poorly our defensive tackles were playing against those duo runs, I even put it on my X account. I said, teams are going to run duo at us over and over and over again all year until we prove we can stop it. And almost every single game from then on out, teams came with a heavy diet of duo against us. I mean, it was as clear to see as people were like, wow, you really saw something. Like, no, I just saw this was the run. I saw what all the other coaches saw. This was not a secret on film. The Rams came out at one point and ran the same exact duo run against us 3 straight times, got 7 yards, got 8 yards, got 6 yards, and scored a touchdown. And I was just like, oh my, they didn't even bother having a different formation and a different motion. They lined up in the same formation, used the exact same pre-snap motion as they had, and they ran it on us 3 straight times, and we couldn't stop it. That makes you disgusted at your team when that happens. Like in a close game, it was a game that we were up 14-0 at one point.
That's kudos to McVay. Sometimes all these coaches want to get cute, but you know what? Sometimes the simple thing that's working, just run it until they stop it.
Well, and it was just like the defensive tackles cannot hold up on that. So what did they do this offseason? Okay, they went and they drafted Alfred Collins out of Texas, 335-pound, long length defensive tackle.
1 tech, right?
Yeah, he's playing a lot of 3 there. They moved him to 3 technique because he's got the feet and the length for it. They love length from their 3 techs. So his wingspan was like 88th percentile. Sort of.
I got CJ West too. Wasn't he also a nose tackle or a 1 tech?
Yeah. So CJ's more of the nose tackle type. He's playing a little more 3 as well. But both of those guys, when I watched their college tape, I watched them stand up against duo as well as anybody in the league. And I was like, okay, the 49ers had a plan. I watched Micah Williams at Georgia get moved inside to a 3 and 4 technique and stand up against duo. And I was like, okay, they had a plan that they saw. We got beat by these runs, and in the Shanahan system, duo is called punch. That they were like, we're not going to get punched anymore. we're going to hold up against you. So what I've seen this year is teams that sit there and try and run duo on us. We are defending it so much better. It looks to me, just from, I haven't run the stats on it, but from my just kind of naked eye of review on it, and kind of straw poll almost, it feels like last year we were giving up about 3 yards before contact on duo runs, and right now it feels like about 0.75 or 1. I mean, is that kind of a difference? So if the hope is to sit there and try and run duo into that 49ers defensive front, I think that's going to be a really tough task.
Well, I mean, so we fire Bobby Slowick on the precipice of him not adapting and adjusting. Like, again, Shanahan's scheme can be rigid, but you can still have the person to be able to adapt within. But like adapting, one, not to his personnel. Like, we ran too much wide zone when we had an O-line that's all better at gap and man-on-man blocking scheme. And then obviously we hired Kaylee, and every interview you hear is like, we got him to adapt and adjust. And his whole thing is like, I will adapt to our personnel. I'll build the offense around them, and I will adapt and adjust weekly to our opponents. And we really haven't seen either. Like, he's shown that he wants to do this same thing. I guess it's tough because obviously you still need a core identity and philosophy. And for us, that is duo and inside zone. And they want to run the ball, play action. And they tried it first 3 games, didn't work. And it worked against the Titans and the Ravens, but they were the Ravens' worst, if not second worst, run defense in the league. And when we played them, they were banged up, as well as the Titans. They were, a bottom third run defense. So those 2 games gave them confidence, like, hey, our plan works. But then now you go up against the Seahawks, number 1, number 2 defensive defense against the run, and it killed us. Like, you saw the game, like, we had, I think, 8 or 9 short yardage situations and converted 2 of them. And those 2 were passes, like on second down. We tried running the ball up the middle several times on 3rd and short, 4th and short, and couldn't do it. So my whole mindset is like, I want them to adapt and adjust and kind of spread it out more at times when you can't run, and abandon the run, or maybe try more wide zone in those situations. But to me, it feels like they're going to stick to it. And, we can win some games if we play some average to below average rush defenses. But what you're telling me is y'all have made a concerted effort. But so those opponents y'all have played, they historically tend to run more zone. So as part of that, do you have to figure into, like, you haven't played like a true identity gap team yet to really be optimistic that that's why they're stopping it? Or do you still kind of feel the same way?
Well, I think the best corollary would be Sean McVay's Rams. As far as that inside zone duo, they're very much that. And just if you look at that tape, and I'm sure Nick Cayley is going to go to that, and that's going to be his foundational tape, right?
Mm-hmm.
How did Robert Saleh defend Sean McVay's team? How is he defending this? And I'm going to look, and he's going to look at, what matchups was he willing to live with? What was he trying to cover up for? And how did he try and do that? Was it by leverage on this? Was it by, they're going to look at a lot of little details on that. I think it just, again, from looking at the tape on the Texans, it feels like Nick Cayley's not 100% sure what his offensive line is. And he's not 100% sure who CJ Stroud is as a quarterback. Is he one where because when McVay made the change from more of the Shanahan style to more of this, we're going to allow some more adjustments by the quarterback at the line of scrimmage. And it's not even that allow might not even be the right term, because Kyle Shanahan's talked about this. He had a really good podcast episode with one of our beat reporters, Tim Kawakami, who sits down with him at the beginning of training camp every year. And this was a portion that they spent about 10 minutes talking about. And Kyle went into a lot of detail about it, because in that offense, in that system, they put a lot on the center. So identifying the mic is something they do almost every play. But I will say on pass protection. On run plays, some of them are Sam identified, some are Mike identified, some are Will identified. So the run game has a lot of different identifiers in there. And so instead of trying to ask the quarterback to do all of that, they would say, well, we're going to ask the center to do that. And so a lot of times, if you see the Shanahan system, you'll see the tackles and guards are going to get to the line of scrimmage, and they're going to get down in their set, and the center is going to still be standing up, because what he's doing is he's identifying who's the Mike, who's the Will, because he's gonna make those call outs to the offensive line. And then he's gonna try and watch for who's moving around and how things are being adjusted, and he's going to declare certain things. And the quarterback just has to understand what he's going to declare, but doesn't have to worry about communicating it. And he gets to, as things are moving, watch the safeties. And so now you've taken CJ Stroud's eyes from the safeties to he's having to watch the front and the linebackers and identify who's moving where and who's moving what. And from there, then make any changes that they want. And it's not that a quarterback maybe can or can't. It's what are they used to doing?
Mm-hmm.
Because if you've run this, because a lot of times you'll run the same concepts. It might be dagger, okay? Well, every other time when you played, for 2 years when you ran dagger, you were used to cluing on this safety, and I'm going to watch this move. And then when that happens, I can keep my eyes on him the whole time, and I'm able to make that, and I tie it to my feet. And all of a sudden now, though, I'm being asked, okay, we're going to send this in motion. I need you to watch this guy over here. And if we need to adjust protection, we're going to do it. And if so, that's going to change your read. And that just, it takes, you're trying to rewire how somebody has operated in an offense for a while. And to me, it's either you live with the growing pains and you say the end product might be closer to what we want, but we're going to have a lot of growing pains in between there. But you run the risk of burying your quarterback's confidence and make him gun shy and make him no longer play fast. Or, I don't want people to assume that that CJ Stroud just isn't capable of running it this way, because I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know if he is or not. And I don't think Nick Caley knows if he is or not. Yeah. I think CJ Stroud felt like this is something he wanted some more control. Kyle Shanahan's told the story again in that meeting of like, the reason they did that is he's allowed to, and it's still up to their quarterback. Like, he allowed Kirk Cousins to do that. He told the story about Kirk Cousins doing that in Washington. He said, Kirk came to me. We played this team, and they came with the same blitz 3 times. And and by the third time, he knew it was coming, and he kind of wanted to adjust the protection and take the shot, because he was like, I knew we could have hit the big shot, but we didn't do it. And so Kirk came to him during the week, and he said, okay, if this happens again, and we have that kind of a situation, can I make the adjustment and go for the bigger shot? And Kyle said, yeah, you can do whatever you want. Yeah, I mean, you want to do that? That's fine with me. He goes, but you better be right. You better be right. And so Kirk was like, all right, I got this. And so that week he was like, he was studying their pressure packages and doing all this stuff. And after the game, Kirk Cousins came to Kyle Shanahan and he said, that was the worst game I've ever played in my life. He's like, because I was so ready for 3 of their blitz packages that I knew we could get a home run on. And because of that, I was so focused on looking for it every single play that it was like, I couldn't digest everything else that was going on, because I was looking so hard for that one big shot. I wanted to hit it so bad. And it ended up.
And he was a young quarterback at this point too, right? That's part of the deal with CJ Stroud, a young quarterback. You're wanting to hit these big, huge home runs. That's part of the bigger overall issue, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's like, okay, this is that moment to get there. And so you end up focusing on that and being so into and muddying the mind with these looks that you never get. That they showed other teams, and now all of a sudden you're not getting those, and you prepared all week for them, and they're not showing up. And it's like you forgot how to just it's like overwhelmed with the stuff that you were preparing for to just start playing fast. So Shanahan, the way his system's always been, they don't do a lot of audibles because there's like 3 or 4 different coverage adjustment routes. So, like a through route, for example, has one way it's run versus 2 safety, one way it's run versus single safety. And so it might go this way, it might go that way, but there's an answer for it against certain coverage. One route's going to be a curl route versus single safety. It's going to be a fade versus 2. And you have these choice routes, and you have all these different things. Like each play can have up to 3 different adjustments based on the coverage. And so, you go from that to all of a sudden now the quarterback's got to assign some of those, and it can just make guys play slower. And, Tom Brady got really good at that, but he was also playing and he was Tom Brady for a really long time. Matt Stafford's been in the league for a really long time. Yeah. And so I feel like, okay, if you're going to go this route and you believe CJ Stroud can, this is going to be a 3-year investment, a 2-year investment. It's going to take some time. Are fans, are the team willing to make this investment? And as far as time, Peyton Manning and Kyle talked about this too. It was another great point. He says, people, they always mention, like Can Brock do? Because people have said Brock could do the same thing. Could Brock do what Peyton Manning did? Because Peyton Manning was standing there and everybody watch him make all these adjustments. He's like, yeah, but Peyton Manning only played in one formation almost his entire career. We're not trying to play in one formation our entire career. We're trying to play in 30 different formations. So, it's about, do you want to try and be multi-formational, or do you want to put all this on your quarterback? Because the Patriots didn't have that many formations. Like we just act like they're running the same systems, but had even more that they were doing. Well, no, when you do that on your quarterback, other things have got to get pared down. And I think they're trying to figure that out, and they haven't been able to figure that out.
Well, so like I feel like they run too many different formations. Like to me, like that's the control aspect is like I wanted, and people get like they kind of misconstrue when I say this, but like I wanted more of a spread offense, and like that looks different in the NFL, obviously. But to me, it's like CJ Stroud, Ohio State, more spread elements, more up tempo, more quick game, having space and spreading it out, less condensed formations allows you to recognize blitzers. You don't invite, nickel defenders into the box to blitz. So like that's what I wanted. And I thought Caley might adapt and adjust too, but he's, giving him this control, but it's out of these varied formations and heavy formations and condensed formations. So, but you kind of shedded some light to me on that. Like, and it's tough too, because we should be in a win now mode. You would think, your first 2 years under D'Amico and CJ, you win a playoff game in each year, and now your goal is to make the next step to make the conference championship. But then you got rid of – that's tough too. Like Slowick got a lot of heat. I was on the fire him bandwagon, but now I look back and like, man, like you invested this time into this system, and maybe they were about to turn their corner. You don't know. I mean, so now you kind of look back and think, man, did we just waste all that invested time? And like you mentioned, you're starting fresh on a whole new one where you're having to build it back up. But like, can we afford the time to do that if you're supposed to try and win now? So it's tough. But I'll tell you personally from fans, like I'm saying I'm not out on Caley. I'm frustrated with him, mostly with his short yardage plays. Like I get you're undermanned against the Seahawks, but I mean, you got to be able to come up with better play calls like quarterback sneaks, for example. Yeah, I mean, you have to let them play it out. I guess my hope is you play some lesser defenses here and there, and Stroud gets better. But your point as far as like his eye level changing, rather than going to just the safeties the whole time, it's now backers then to safeties, and you can tell that's messing with him if you watch the tape. Like he looks, post snap is confusing him or hesitating a little bit more than normal. So it's kind of tough. But let's dive into. I know we're done here in about 13 minutes or so. Let's get a little bit of the matchup from the Niners offense versus the Texans defense. Just tell me about the Niners offense this year.
Well, I mean, it has been Christian McCaffrey is the majority of the offense. The wide receivers have been incredibly banged up. If you look at, they just released MVS on an injury settlement. He got a calf injury. So Marquez Valdes-Scantling. To put it in perspective, though, he was one of the starting receivers for 3 weeks, and he was somebody signed that was cut from the Seahawks. Kendrick Bourne has been the number one receiver this year, and he was signed the second week of the year. That's how bad their receiver core has been banged up. Ricky Pearsall is most likely not playing this game. First round pick last year, still dealing with a PCL injury. Brandon Ayuk still on IR. Juwan Jennings is getting healthier, but he's not there. We're not sure what's happening with Jordan Watkins, a rookie that we drafted who had a very strong preseason, but he's been out with a number of different injuries. Jacob Cowing, a second-year burner. He had a hamstring pull in the beginning of training camp, was cleared by the player health department at the end of training camp to come back, has had such a severe hamstring pull, he has not even returned to practice yet.
That's a shame.
He pulled his hamstring at the end of August. We are now nearing the end. It has been almost 2 months. Okay, to put it in perspective, George Kittle had a severe hamstring pull in week 1 against the Seahawks, and he came back last week. Jacob Cowing was hurt the week before and still has not been even had his practice window opened from IR. So, like the receiver core is extremely banged up. So it's been a lot of Christian McCaffrey. They've been struggling to run the ball. Again, a lot of the 49ers run game is based around your tight ends and your receivers run blocking. The offensive line had been in and out. Right guard had been dealing with a knee issue. He's still not 100%. Ben Barch, the starting left guard, he went down to a high ankle sprain week 2 against the Saints. We've had a 7th round rookie, Connor Colby, playing left guard. who has been up and down. Just lost starting center Jake Brendel, which a lot of 49ers fans are happy with, because Jake Brendel is like the whipping boy for the offensive line. It's like no matter what, when in doubt, it was Jake Brendel's fault. Now he's also had a number of really poor plays put on tape, and it has been widely spread on 49ers social media. But
Well,
he
who's
went
the
down.
backup and how much is the backup played?
Matt Hennessy. Matt Hennessy's the backup. He came in against the Falcons last week, and he played pretty well. He played all right.
But wouldn't
I
that
think
be an issue, like, given you mentioned the control of the center? Like, is that a concern, especially now in a loud, potentially road environment, if the fans are into it?
it does concern me. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, Jake Brendel, for all of his physical deficiencies, was a very smart player.
You at least get
And
lined up to begin with to give yourself a chance.
and makes the right calls. There's a lot of calls in the run game. I mean, the 49ers playbook is like 6 pages of calls in the run game that are based upon different fronts and different shifts that you're going to see. So, and those again are all handled. It might be a solo call where he's saying, okay, we were going to do a combo block, and he's telling the left guard, now you got this guy solo and I'm going to go do this. And like, we had a play where that happened against the Saints. No, it wasn't the Saints. It was whoever we played after that. But it was a solo call and they didn't get it. You know, Colby was hesitant on his steps. He doesn't get the call over, but you're going to have things like that. Run game, a lot of that. When you have your protections. And now, so that's going to be stressed. But Christian McCaffrey has been getting the ball in his hands. And a lot of that too, you had George Kittle gone forever. So, I mean, just pass catchers were few and far between. So now you're starting to get some of those back, but you're going against a really good Texans defense. That's really good in the secondary, really good in the secondary. I think the question and answer session, if I'm Kyle Shanahan, is going to be, okay, D'Amico, do you stay in this quarters? And if you are you willing to live with Al-Shaair on Christian McCaffrey over the middle?
Nope.
That's going to be the question, because when you go in that quarters, you're able to then, kind of move everybody out and over the middle. And the Seahawks attacked Al-Shaair with Arroyo, the tight end, in those over the middle zones, right? They just sent a running back to the flat. They ran off the far side, and that brings the curl player over, and so it's opening up the middle. They're providing space, and where Al-Shaair's got to cover that tight end in space in that
choice
middle
or
zone.
option route too, right? I mean, like,
yeah,
that athlete's
they
gonna
had
win
some
that every time.
choice. They have some drives. So, I mean, you can send Christian McCaffrey on something, and you're going to run like a mesh system there. And you're going to say, okay, if you're going to jump on Christian McCaffrey, I'm going to get the ball to George Kittle or Kendrick Bourne over the middle, or Juwan Jennings. And they're going to try and then run and split the safeties, which they're not as explosive as you've had in the past, but you live with it.
I love your football mind, dude. You're on it, dude. You're an inspiration for me.
So like, I'm going to look at it and say, okay, the question to answer is Al-Shaair a comfortable matchup for you? Or do you say, I'm going to now bring that weak side safety down, and I'm going to help on one side against Christian McCaffrey, so that Al-Shaair only has to shade him strong side, and he's going to have a help on almost a double on there? Or are you going to run more 3 buzz, right? Where you're going to bring that safety down into a hook zone, and he's going to be sitting there against Christian McCaffrey. You can keep 2 eyes on him. That's going to be the question and answer session in the passing game. In the run game, it's going to be more of a question and answer on your offensive line. Are you going to be able to handle these 2 beastly guys in the middle? Because they love, I mean, the edges are hard. It's going to be really hard to widen those edges against Houston. I mean, your edge players are as good as anybody in the league. That's why the defense is so good, because they make offenses run the ball in a box. You do not get outside. You do not win the edges against them.
So it's a good matchup for us against wide zone, where these 2 guys can set the edge and now try to force you to cut back or have inside running game.
Yeah, and it says, okay, are you going to be able to then pull some of that gap run that you saw against Atlanta? Can you do that against this Houston's defensive interior? Now, the Falcons had 3 guys inside, but they were all undersized. Now you have 2 guys who are extremely fast, are extremely strong, that can hold the point of attack, and it allows all of those gap fillers. They play an aggressive one gap, they're going to come flying downhill fast. And so that means you better have your pads strapped on tight if you're Kyle Juszczyk, if you're George Kittle, if you're Luke Farrell, to go pick up these guys. That means it's harder for your wide receivers to get up on those blocks on a linebacker or a safety who's sitting there, because they're going to be coming down in a hurry. So how do you, and you can't take advantage of that because they set such a good edge. And so, I mean, it's going to be tough going in the run game. But the challenge would be, can you get that? Can you get at least something to where you can run some play action? Maybe, Bob back on backer sort of stuff, where in that where you're singling up the weak side. If that's George Kittle, can you get George Kittle coming at him like a run block on a man coverage there? You run Stingley off, and then now you have to force Kittle's man defender to play run first and then try and cover him going out deep. The Seahawks hit you with that a couple times. Deep throws to the tight end down the right sideline. So like I'm looking at that of like, okay, is that somewhere you can get to? But they're going to be few and far between. This is a very, very, very good Houston defense with the deficiencies that their offense has had to hold up the way they have. This, as good as everybody still says they are, I think they are still underrated. To me, this is the best defense in the league. DeMeco Ryans is doing a phenomenal job at that defense. I love DeMeco as a coach. I mean, this is, as Shanahan has said about a few things, this is an ice bag game. Okay, it's going to be, you're going to have to be bringing the ice bags out after this game, because it's going to be brutal. And the question for us as 49ers fans is, who are we having to offer as a blood sacrifice to the injury god to get through this game, right? Because when it's going to be that kind of a game, you almost feel like it. I do want to ask this question because I want to see, how do Texans fans perceive Alshire, because I think that he's gotten a lot of attention nationally as being a dirty player. Is he seen as a dirty player by Houston fans?
It depends on who you ask, and I feel like it's like slowly people are starting to say that. But me personally, like, I saw that last hit against Darnold. I'm like, like initially, I'm like, man, that's kind of messed up. And then you watch it. Okay, he makes contact inbounds and drives him down. His head's down. You hear his explanation. He says he didn't hear a whistle. I mean, so you're kind of like,
I don't fault him on that play. Darnold lowered his head, lowered his shoulder inbounds,
and then he pulled him down into him too.
Yeah,
well, I mean, there's a lot of like
the play started inbounds. Like it was, and it wasn't like,
if you don't like
they
it,
were right on the bounds.
Out of bounds, bro. Everything he's been involved with, the Caleb Williams one, he's trying to tiptoe out of bounds and get a free hit. Like, get your ass out of bounds or get hit. Like, that's just a larger issue overall. And then the Trevor Lawrence one to me was another issue. Quarterbacks, sliding, not sliding, like either get out of bounds or slide. And if you get hit, that's on you. So, I mean, I don't think he intentionally is a dirty player and tries to hurt people. I think he just plays the game the right way and the way it's supposed to be played. And I think that's the way DeMeco Ryans wants his players to play: physical, aggressive, intimidating. Our whole defense plays like that. Like, they will hit your ass legally. But if, it just happens to be, it's one of those things too. Like, that's just how he plays. It all started with that Trevor Lawrence thing and Caleb Williams. And now it's just like, he's become like this, polarizing figure. But I think most people, Texans fans, will say, no, like, y'all are soft. He's playing within the rules and it's getting overblown.
Well, and look, quarterbacks, like, I feel like some of them tried to bait him into it, and they're going to say, well, I'm going to slide late and I'll get 15 yards. But I think he's also taken the approach of, okay, you're going to do that, you might not finish the game. And for me as a football fan, I say I'm fine with that, because if a quarterback, that is on you to protect
the risk
yourself.
You take.
Every other football player on this field is responsible for protecting themselves. You know why Darnold was smacked out of bounds? Because he turned it up and lowered his shoulder. He thought he was going to pull a Josh Allen, and guess what? He's not. And so you got stung. But I mean, this is the way they coach their defense. Saleh was the same way, because Saleh drafted Alshire because they love the way he was a run and hit linebacker, a guy that they want to be. They'll give you that underneath, but they're going to sting you if you take that bait. And so they're going to have somebody fly up and hit you, and it's going to be violent. It's going to be intense. And so I look back on this and say, okay, if the league has a problem with how Alshire has done these, there's only one player to blame for this, and that is Patrick Mahomes.
Facts. Because Mahomes, that's what it stems to. Did you watch our game? I know y'all have had y'all's experience, but our games against him, especially in the playoffs. Oh my God.
Yeah. I like, and it was what game was it? Against the Chargers game, where Pat was running out of bounds and the corner, lets up, like the guy, you can see his back straighten. When a guy's back straightens, they are no longer coming in to make a hit. Okay. So, and the corner's back straightens, and Pat drops his shoulder into the guy right at the sideline as he's going out of bounds. And you go, no. You don't get to do that. You do that, guess what? What happened to Sam Darnold's going to happen to every quarterback around this league. Pat Mahomes did the same thing to us when we played him in 2024. Yet he looked like he was going out of bounds, tiptoed, and then cut back inside. And our guys over pursued because they let up. They're like, well, he's going out of bounds. They didn't want to get the 15-yard penalty. Well, you guess what, Pat? You act like you're going to do it. You do these fake, almost fake slides, and then you take off running. No, there's one person who's responsible for the way that Azeez has played this, and I do not blame Azeez. I say, you know what? Go and knock him out.
Hit the
and what makes me more upset is the NFL keeps trying to fine him and suspend him for egregiously, repeat offender sort of things. And I go,
it needs to be on the quarterbacks.
This is on the quarterbacks. You know what?
The fines and the penalties need to be on them. If you want it to stop and you truly care about their health and safety, it won't stop until you do that. And to me, it's the same notion like with the receivers, defensive receivers getting hit. And Brady has said this. I've always said this, like some of these passes, like throw the flag on the freaking quarterback. Like if you are willing to take the risk and you really care about the receiver, who's the one putting the receiver in that position where a defensive back cannot move in a split second? Like that's on the quarterback. Yeah, so
and you know who absolutely agrees with you? John Gruden. His 1998 playbook with the Raiders. He mentions in there when they have passes over the middle that there's a write up on it, and he says the blow up hit is the quarterback is responsible for protecting the receiver from the blow up hit. It was printed in there in the write-up for every, because it was the write-up before the routes, and it was talking about in breaking routes, and it was like you run with full speed. We want these running this way, and it is not your job to protect against the blow-up hit. The job is on the quarterback to protect you from the blow-up hit.
The guy throwing the ball. Who would have thought?
I mean, that was 49ers fans for years with Jimmy G. That was one of the biggest gripes with him, was that he would throw hospital balls.
Yeah.
Is that he would lead receivers into the middle of the field where they would get blown up. And I've been saying this since like 2015. Like if it was really about player safety and you weren't just trying to take these hits out to say you were player safety, but also try and keep the offense, then you would start throwing a flag on quarterbacks for throwing those. Like, let's be real, because that's whose responsibility it is.
1,000%. I mean, it's everything we're talking about here. Like the key word is hypocrisy. Like Mahomes, getting mad when he goes half-ass out of bounds, but then when they don't tackle him, now hitting them. Like that's hypocritical of you to do that. Yeah, it's just, I'm glad you think that way. It's kind of controversial, but I agree. I mean, like of that, or just say it like, hey, like it's player safety, but also we want points in offense. Just say what it is. Like, at this point, you're gaslighting.
We don't want to get sued, and we still want the ratings. Is what it is, because they did a lot of these things after the big concussion class action lawsuit against the NFL, where they had to pay out like $70 billion, something like that. It was just, it was wild. It was a huge number, maybe even more than that, or 700 million. It was just an insane amount of money.
And if you really cared, you would just flag the quarterback. And it's almost like the NBA, like flopping, it's getting out of control. Okay, we'll start flagging flopping, like that's what they're starting to do. So like that's kind of a similar deal there, but sorry to cut you off.
No, you're good. I mean, just think back to how many, like, we don't remember Jerry Rice's career of him getting blown up by some of the meanest safeties that ever played the game, because guess what? Joe Montana didn't throw him into safety sitting over the middle of the field.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, you go back to that 1989 Super Bowl. They had, what was his name? The Hall of Fame safety with the Broncos. I'm blanking on his name right now. Anyways, Hall of Fame safety is sitting there. They ran. It's sometimes called a pin concept, or which is a post on one side plus an in concept from the other. They ran that against the Broncos a lot in that game, and Joe Montana moved him just so expertly. He would look him off to the deep in route, and he'd throw the post. He would move that safety and throw it. Like, that's the stuff that you should be seeing from quarterbacks. If you shouldn't just sit there and guess and say, okay, I think it's going to be there, because in that day and age, that if you threw the deep in when that safety was flat-footed, your guy was getting separated from his helmet. Like that was what you were having happen. And they didn't blame the safety. They said the quarterback should have never thrown that ball. I mean, so I see a lot of this stuff, like defenders. I mean, Richard Sherman's talked about it. You're just asking defenders to protect, they shouldn't be the protectors of the offense. You know who should be the protectors of the offense? The offense.
When Tom Brady, the GOAT,
Steve Atwater, that's what it was. Yeah.
When Brady says it, like that's case closed. But I mean, and part of it too is like it's kind of messed up because the quarterback knows, okay, this guy's probably gonna get blown up, but either he's gonna catch it or I'm gonna get a penalty and it's gonna be a first down. It's like almost part of their offensive game plan. And it does take a good throw to fit it in this tight window, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't throw it. Like Dak Prescott is good at throwing those balls, but his guys are getting blown the hell up. And it's like either the defender knows and lets up and lets him, catch it, or he hits him and gets a PI or a penalty. So man, this has been awesome. I could talk to you all day. We might have to do this again, hopefully in the Super Bowl. Maybe not this year for us, but maybe
Hey,
down the
look,
road.
I would love a Shanny Bowl where it's D'Amico and Sala and Shanny in the Super Bowl. It feels like every darn year it's that everybody believes the Chiefs are dead, and then October comes around and suddenly they're alive again. But I do wonder with Cayman's Island podcast. He's a good friend. He's here in Alabama where I'm at. But he asked, and I guess I'll ask you this: do you think it's going to be the first to 17 points wins? Is this going to be a low scoring affair? I think it's going to be.
Absolutely. So I look at y'all's game against the Falcons. I watched that game and I couldn't help but think like this is how the Texans Niners game will be. And y'all's offense is, manufactured through CMC and the pass game and getting creative. It's going to be a defensive battle. And for the Texans to win, they don't need a good offense, a great offense. They just need their offense not to hurt them. Don't take 18-yard sacks. Don't throw picks. And I feel like both coaches
avoid the negative plays.
Exactly. And so this could be a quick, boring game. Both offenses probably understand that, hey, this is up to our offense to lose and our defense to win. So I would expect conservative on both sides, maybe a little bit more aggressive from y'all on offense. But yeah, I mean, field position, ball control, don't turn the ball over. So first to 17 might be the case, and you might have some scores. And if it does feel too, if either team does get down multiple scores, it's probably out of reach. And I mean, I don't see the Texans coming back from a 14-point lead. It happened to the Seahawks. It was 14. It was pretty much game after the first quarter. And I don't know how you feel about the Niners offense, but with our defense, if they get a 14-point lead, that now they can be aggressive in known passing down situations. So first to 17, I would agree with. And if it's a multiple score lead, it's pretty much game.
Yeah. And I feel like this is it's going to be a frustrating game for both of us, I think, to watch offensively for our offenses, because this feels like one of those games that if you have a 2-yard loss on first down, your drive's over.
Yep.
I mean, it just feels that way. Like you have any sort of negative play on first down. If you have a false start by your offensive lineman on first down, drive's over. You try and run it outside. You can't get that crack block. Oh wait, drive's over.
But I would prefer that. I know it's defeatist mindset, but I would prefer that rather than trying to make a bad situation worse. Like I just said, now taking a big sack or a fumble, and I would prefer that. It's not going to be preferred by fans, but that is the smart approach with our offense, at least.
My biggest fear in this game is coming into this game is I know we're probably going to be able to hold y'all's offense to 24 points or less. I feel like that's I can feel that pretty confidently. I don't feel like our offense is going to score more than 20 points. I don't think that's what's going to be happening. What this game's going to come down to is which quarterback exposes the ball first. And that's going to be and I worry about Mac Jones in that, because he has had several fumbles inside the pocket. And when you got the edge players, you got screaming off the edges, and Colton McKivitz is not a great pass protector. He's a very good run blocker. He's going to struggle. And which guy do they love as the matchup there?
And he's your right tackle.
He's the right tackle. Do you give up, those strip sacks? The strip sack is what I'm most worried about, because that's the game-changing play that can cost you the game.
We finally got one for a touchdown against the Seahawks. I mean,
exactly. Like when I'm looking at this game, that's the one that I worry about. I go, I would feel okay about this game, but that element, like if it was a game, I say, okay, if you could tell me at the end of this game, the turnover margin for both teams is 0-0, I feel pretty good about our chances. If you tell me that there's 2 turnovers involved with each team, I'm saying we lost this game because Mac Jones fumbled at the worst time and gave the ball over at the worst place. That's how I'm feeling about it.
It's good for us to know. But I will say too, like us Texans fans are very down. The national media fans' perception is very down on us because every time y'all see us, I don't blame you. We play on prime time and we play like dog shit. I mean, it's like if I were not a fan of the Texans and saw only their primetime games, I'd be like, this is the worst team ever. But I do feel like we aren't as bad as what us fans and most people think. Like as bad as it is, we're 2-4. The first 3 games, 0-3. All the stuff we mentioned, new offense, all these adjustments. You lost to the Rams by 1 possession, fumbled inside the 20, going ahead under 2 minutes to win the game. You lost to the Bucks. You had Baker Mayfield in the pocket on a blitz with Henry Toe on 4th and 10 to end the game. Gets juked, go down to lose the game. The game against the Jags, you had 3 turnovers in their end of the field in the fourth quarter, including another fumble by Nico Collins to go ahead late in the game. And you lost by 7, but we gave them the touchdown because of the situation. So 3 games there, all winnable. Obviously, you win against 2 bad teams. And then the Seahawks game, as bad as it was, you were in the game. So I feel like, the recency bias of what we just saw. And, obviously I don't want to come up here and like act like we're some great team. I'm just trying to say we may not be as bad as people think. And then I'm not saying anything about the Niners just from that perspective. So they could be, and also too, there's the element of this, like this is pretty much as a big as a must-win game as it gets for us. We're 2-4, a team with high expectations. You go to 2-5, it's like it's pretty much done. But if you win this game, you have a chance to potentially right the ship. And whereas y'all have overperformed with injuries in 5-2, and I know teams don't think like this, but y'all could afford a loss more than we could,
Yeah, and I mean we're ailing. I will say, if it's any consolation to Texans fans, I can give you some 49ers history that might make you feel a little bit better. So 2021, the 49ers were after 6 games, they were 2-4. And people were calling for Kyle Shanahan's head. They were calling for our quarterback to be benched and Trey Lance to come in. It was just everything was horrible in 49ers land. 2-4. We went out and beat the Bears. We were losing to the Bears, who were not a good Bears team that year, until Deebo Samuel, they run a tunnel screen, and he runs like 70 yards on a tunnel screen, I think it was for a touchdown. And it felt like that was the moment that saved the season. They start out 2-4. They win that game. They go to 3-4. They lose the next game, go 3-5. Then they win like 9 of the next 10 games, or no, it was 8 of the next 9 games, get into the playoffs and roll and go to the NFC Championship game against the Rams, who went on to win that Super Bowl. So being 2-4 is not mean that it's the end of your season, and things can look horrible. That 2-4 49ers team looked horrible. I mean, they were terrible on both sides of the ball at that point, and they were able to right the ship, turn it around, and get things rolling. And by the end of the year, they were the team that everybody thought was about to roll into the Super Bowl. And then you get an arm punt by Matthew Stafford that's dropped by our safety Jaquiski Tart, who's out of the league now. It was with 7 minutes left in the game. Stafford throws up like a 45-yard bomb to OBJ or Odell, OBJ, and it hits Jaquiski Tart in the chest, and just the whole game falls apart. But you can still end up being at the end of the season. You may be looking back in this time and saying, man, we were freaking out for no reason.
Hey, I appreciate that. And so I've been trying to preach this overall, and I've lesser coming off of, and I'm kind of rebounding off of this Seahawks loss. Obviously, this game's a big one for us, but how much of that season was us early in the season not really knowing who's who? Like, we can't really blame ourselves 4, 5, 6, 7 weeks in. We all want to make these proclamations of this team's good, this team's bad. Oh, you lost to this team, we beat that team, yada, yada, yada. But then, like, in that situation, you might have looked back on the Niners year, like, yeah, we started slow, but like our schedule was tough. Like you thought it was bad, but it was tough. So like, how much of it was that, and how much it was like actually like just improving and changing things?
Yeah, and a team finding their identity on offense. I mean, sometimes it takes a while. They may figure it out. It may not. I mean, at this point, being definitive about anything with any team in the league right now can be dangerous, because you can always see teams in December will be different than they are now. And it can be injuries. It can be time on task, getting back together, riding the ship. I think unless you're the Dolphins or the Jets, your season is not written yet. Those teams are obviously, they are what they are at this point. The Indianapolis Colts, they could end up falling apart and not
I've
even
been
make the
saying it.
playoffs. We've
I've been
seen
saying
teams
it.
do that. We have seen teams do that where they get too high on their own
Every year. It
supply
happens
and they
every year.
decide. Yeah, and they'll just fall off. I remember the Broncos, what started out like 7-0 one year and missed the playoffs.
I think it depends
And
on schedule. Like, I mean, you look at like you talk about the Dolphins and the Jets and all these teams. Like, a lot of those wins are against those teams, But we don't really weigh that in sometimes. That's what's been tough for me as a Texans fan is like all these other teams beat up on bad teams and no one mentions it. But then because we started
I
0
mean,
and
the
3
Bills.
against three tough, yes, and they finally play a decent team in the Patriots and the Falcons and lose both. But their first whatever games were against bad teams and they get crowned as the best team ever. But yeah, the Texans beat the Titans and the Ravens and do so handedly. But then, the Rams barely beat them and no one says anything. And then, yeah, it's just, I don't know, it's tough. but, uh, but yeah, so I'm excited, man. I know we went over a little bit of time here, but
No, it's
maybe we'll do a follow up, or if you want to do another one at some other point. But I failed to mention, obviously, if y'all want to follow Jonny, it's at Jonny JonnyDel on X, correct? Or is it?
It
Give,
has an
give your
S on
info
the
real
end
quick.
on S. Yeah. So at Johnny Dells, that's Johnny Dells with no H. The S is possessive. People always think that that's my last name. That was just because of the Twitter handle. Because my YouTube channel is Johnny Dells Football Academy. Again, it's a possessive S there. On YouTube, there I try and do some real edited, sharp, quick kind of recaps of the game. I'll cover 25 to 30 plays, try and get it digestible in 20 to 25 minutes is what I try and do. Break it down of why the whys and hows of the game is what I'm trying to share with people and show, what happened, what and why did certain things happen. Now, I always come at it from a 49ers perspective because I'm a 49ers guy. I've been a 49ers fan my entire life. So I'm showing what we did right or what we did wrong. But if you want to check that out after the game, you can go check out my YouTube channel. It'll be up around 7:00 Pacific or Central Standard Time. If you're a Texans fan, on Tuesday night is when I shoot for it to be done. There's my YouTube channel. Yep, there it is in all its
Look at this.
glory.
So in the off season, I need to get with you, like, because obviously I know a decent amount of football, but like one, learning more from you, but two, learning how to edit and do videos like this. I mean, you can see he's explaining in great detail route concepts, coverages. I mean, this guy is a wizard, dude. And I've gotten to know him. He goes to the Senior Bowl as well and does
Yeah.
scouting there. So even if you're a Texans fan, you can still follow him on YouTube and get some great intel. I mean, we all scout our players going into the draft. So this guy is awesome. Y'all should definitely give him a follow.
Look, I don't toot my own horn too much, but I will say I feel vindicated this year because I'm finally seeing some more national people give Spencer Rattler some props this year. I came away from the Senior Bowl that year and I said Spencer Rattler reminds me of Brock Purdy. He is going to be a starter in this league. I think there's something to him. I'm really impressed with Spencer Rattler, and people poo-pooed on me for a year. And Robert Saleh came out, and people, and I was like, Robert Saleh said this about him, and they're like, oh, that's just coach speak. Because Robert Saleh said before we played the Saints, he was like, by the end of the year, this guy's going to be a household name. He's an incredible quarterback. And I watched his tape against us, and I was blown away with some of the throws, the way he was handling that offense. I was just so impressed. And so, like, there's certain things you can see at the Senior Bowl. And so it's a great time to be there. And so yeah, I cover a lot of what's going on at the Senior Bowl every year. I'm fortunate enough to live not far, so I just drive down to Mobile and watch it. And it's always a great time. Get together with some 49ers content creators. We go out to eat a lot. It's a good time. We talk football the entire time, so it's great.
Dope.
But yeah,
I'll be trying to join you this year. I know we talked about it, but that would be cool to meet up with
yeah.
you and
If
talk some ball.
if you're down there, I will definitely take you to some Alabama barbecue. There's a
Okay.
killer barbecue place down there. There's also some great seafood, but the barbecue is awesome.
Both sound great to me. And I agree, man. Like I've been high on Rattler too. Like obviously I wasn't at Senior Bowl analyzing him, but like just from watching, like this guy is good. He's not bad. So kudos to you on that. But I know you got things to do. Appreciate you guys tuning in. This was an absolute blast. It seems so far like the 49ers fan base is a delight. So Shout out to all you guys. Best of luck to y'all, and look forward to a great matchup. You got anything else before we close it out? And we can say our goodbyes after this, but I'll just kind of end the stream after this.
Yeah, no. Thank you for reaching out and thank you for connecting. And this is a fun show, man. I really appreciate it too. It's always good to talk to another guy, especially an outside perspective. To go over things and get the perspective on both teams. I haven't done this in a couple of years. I did it a couple of years ago. I was trying to get together with different content creators from different teams throughout the year. It was just a lot of work and it was kind of hit or miss. Some people leave you high and dry. So I really appreciate the opportunity, appreciate the discussion.
Likewise, man. I really